So when Uranus is in Aries, there's a brand new 84-year cycle that's being initiated, not only on individual but collective levels as well. And unfortunately, our consensus societies tend to repeat the cycles. Look at the last Uranus in Aries cycle and World War II and what happened in Germany with, the concentration camps and the gas chambers. And then just look at this Uranus in Aries cycle and what we are seeing as Uranus has moved retrograde, and that explosion, with fighting with, first of all, Ukraine shooting an airplane out of the sky. We haven't seen the last of that one yet. And then what we're seeing going on over between the Jews and the Muslims in the Middle East. We're seeing an escalating of these, that Aryan aggressiveness and a repetition of these cycles. Stay tuned. We've still got 2 more Uranus-Pluto squares coming up. So there's a clinging to the past. There's a clinging on a collective level to all that nationalism. Or Uranus in Aries, we change in some areas and we resist changing in other areas. And this is quite typical for all of us on an individual basis as well as a collective basis. And that change in some areas, resist in others. It goes beyond the evolutionary states. We'll have this taking place in individuated and spirituated states of the soul. And so just reflect within yourself. Where are you making changes and where are you resisting the effort to change? And if you're getting those little repetitious messages about changing, pay attention and make those baby steps forward to minimize the shock and awe or the shock and trauma. So for all of us with Uranus in Aries, there is a desire to have complete and utter freedom to move into the unknown, to move forward in whatever ways we feel comfortable moving forward. And when we sense that we don't have that complete freedom, it creates that instant anger and rage. We get frustrated. We blurt things out. We act out. And then we have to, Aries, do that good old 2 steps forward, 1 step backward and apologize or make amends. So we can sometimes, get overly excited and we can race ahead of ourselves with Uranus. And if we do that, we're going to get tripped up, and just the Libra polarity in general, will point something out to us, and we're going to have to go back and redo or go back and clean it up, or, again, go back and make amends in some way. So while we all have that excitement of things moving forward, and especially in regards to the squares to Pluto and Capricorn and getting beyond perhaps resource limitations, we are, all of us, no matter how much we want to break free, no matter how much we want to move forward, all of us are going to reach the limits of where we feel secure. And then that 2 steps forward has to go 1 step back to establish security before we can then start moving forward again. So if you can learn this pacing, this is true for all the cardinal signs. And this is really true for Uranus in Aries. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Racing into the future and then becoming insecure, fearful, and finding a foundation before we move forward again. We're all going to be cycling that way. So with Uranus in Aries, trauma and the whole thing of PTSD, this can be re-imprinted, or it can be cast off and broken free from. And that trauma is going to come along to the degree that we resist any signs to change. And those signs, again, the repetitious messaging of, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient nature. And so all we have to do is look around us on a collective level, and we can see how in all kinds of places we are re-imprinting the traumas. We can see through Jupiter's recent passage in Cancer, Pluto's retrograde in Capricorn pointing to Cancer, the traumas of the children from Central America as they're trying to travel across Mexico to land in the United States. There is an estimate that there's going to be 100,000 children in 2014 that are going to make their way across Mexico into the U.S. They think that figure will reach 150,000 next year in 2015. So think of the trauma that can come on a collective level from these children. Uranus in Aries, I want to be free. I want to find where I can be safe. Cancer square. And they're, the parents that are willing to send them off in that attempt. For all of us then on an individual level, if we're not making changes in our life, if we're not working to create new dendrites and look at things differently, we can get stressed out. We can have our own stresses lead to trauma, lead to PTSD within all of us. So Uranus in Aries, Aries rules the brain or the head. In traditional head to toe, Aries to Pisces rulerships in health and wellness astrology. So you've got a double signature here on issues with the brain, issues with the head. Uranus has rulership of the red blood cells. It has rulership of the muscles. So putting all these together, we can have stress to the nervous system with Uranus in Aries, anxiety levels, impatience, restlessness. It can just cause someone to fly off the handle, pick up the gun and shoot, unfortunately, here in the U.S. It can lead to, I think what we'll do is we're going to see a lot of brain issues like dementia and Alzheimer's come to the news. And we'll recognize that it is growing as a health issue in our elderly population. We're keeping the body alive, but are we keeping the mind alive? And so we will start to see breakthroughs around dementia issues with Uranus in Aries. And there is this thought coming out in the research that Alzheimer's could be caused by a lot of mini strokes in the brain. Stroke is a heart attack of the brain. And if we have a lot of mini strokes, we don't notice them, but they cause an area of the brain to cease firing together anymore. So we lose the dendrites, we lose the memory in that area. So stay tuned and we'll see if Uranus in Aries, the research continues to show that it is these mini strokes in those areas that is really the causal factor of Alzheimer's, which right now really doesn't have any testing. One of the other alternative theories is that losing the sense of smell early on towards certain things like peanut butter, and I can't remember what the rest of the foods are, but there are certain foods that if we lose the sense of smell to those, it can be an early indicator of Alzheimer's. At this point right now, traditional science doesn't have a test. It is, just discovered by behavioral concerns. You lose your mind, and then also by the autopsies of the brain. And so that's where a lot of that research is taking place. And of course, we don't need anybody to tell us that Uranus in Aries is just going to be full of technological advances that are going to just leap forward faster than we can make sense of them. Technology racing ahead and spirituality or morality being left behind. And that's where it creates a lot of political chaos. So inventors, leaders, scientists, I mean, expect all of these types of people to be in the news. And it creates a lot of social unrest as entire societies and cultures want to break free from the past. And breaking free to the point that we get to anarchy, which is no rules of any sort. And this could be somewhat of what we see battling back and forth in the Ukraine area and the eastern part of that country between Ukraine itself and Russia. We can start to see more of this stuff coming through as Uranus finishes up this decade in Aries. Uranus in Aries is basically about the courage to become a free soul, to become a liberated individual, to break free from our senses conditioning, no matter what it is for any of us on a personal individual level. And that's where your chart's going to come in. Natal Uranus by sign, house, and aspect, and how Uranus in Aries is relating to that by aspects. How Uranus in Aries is relating to your entire individual chart by aspects. And when we break free from consensus conditioning, we become free to be ourself, our authentic true self. We become free to really actualize our true destiny, or, as EA calls it, that evolutionary intent, the polarity point of Pluto the soul by house and sign and aspect. That north node of the moon and its rulers by house and sign. We become free to be leaders, whether it's an individual level or broader and broader on collective levels. And we are real leaders, and others will follow. And so Leroy's telling me that he has trauma headset trauma. Oh, that's cute. Headset trauma. All right, thank you everyone, because I don't, the Q&A on the board, I don't look at that when I'm teaching because it's too distracting for me. And so I guess if there's questions that I really need to know, tell Leroy to print to write it out and give me a post-it note. We work in different rooms so that we don't have that noise thing. And this is the last class we're teaching before we get a break for about 5 weeks. And as I've gotten over adjusting to a new laptop, one of our goals in the next 5 weeks is to really be testing our own headsets. And if any of you were with my Jupiter classes last week, I told you when Uranus goes retrograde, it goofs up communications, as well as a Mercury retrograde. And that seems to be what we're going through, but we'll have it all figured out by the time we start moving back into public classes in September. And we've been brainstorming some ideas. I'll talk about, well, I won't mention them right now, but stay tuned. If you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get the emails as we move into new types of public classes, Uranus in Aries.